Hello, hello, and welcome to my thought on Sunday, which again is Monday, but this time it was because I was away for the weekend, having fun and singing and doing wonderful things that I haven't been able to do because of lockdown. So I'm going to talk on Monday today about hugging because we are allowed to do it in London after the 17th. I'm reminding you that I have a book. Here's the book, Getting the Last Laugh. It's, as I always say, I thought it was about how to do comedy. And there is a chapter in here for any comedian that's listening that just tells you how I construct a set. But the main thing about this is a book that says you can do it. I did it. I have a new book out, and I don't have it here yet, but I will. It's called Ridiculously Old and Getting Better. Um, and you can find that on Amazon. And it has stories of the people I know uh, who have overcome obstacles. And it has an encouraging thing to all of you um, not to let your preconceived notions stop you from living a full life. It's a short book, it's only 97 pages, I think. Um, and many of the people who know me will find that they're in the book because if I have friends, I always think my friends are amazing and I love them very much, so I talk about them. But today I'm going to talk about hugging because I don't think that people realize how awful it has been for people my age in my situation during this lockdown. I have a dear friend, Chris Hunter, whose father in law died alone in a care home. And he and his wife maintain that his death was accelerated because he could see no one and be with no one. As we get older and our senses dull, I always laugh. I don't hear well. Most people know that. And I was telling this woman, I said, I don't hear well, and if you want to know what else doesn't work, I'll just embarrass you. But that's what happens as you get older. Your senses dull. Um, I can still smell things, but not as sharply. I can still see things, but not as clearly. I can still hear things, but they're pretty fuzzy. Um, Touch seems to be all right. And I'm trying to think what the fifth one is, but sound of speech. I don't know what's the fifth one. But hugging is tremendously important. Now, I live alone. As most people know, I have no relationship and I have no children. So when the lockdown happened, I then was cut off from human contact. Because I'm very computer savvy and because a wonderful man named Rob Mayhew came over once a week and brought me treats and gave me a hug, I was not as deprived as others, but we were both breaking a law. However, I believe that it saved me because I did not go into the depression that so many older people go into. And it is a sad thing when we have to violate even a recommendation from the country that you live in, because after all, it's your country and you want to avoid it. So, years and years ago, a woman named Maggie and I went to San Rafael in California, and Maggie had a sign, and we said free hugs. And I'm an older woman, and it was that not that many years ago. There's a wonderful man, Scott Neary, who said to me, I knew her 20 years ago, and she was old then. So I was old then, and this was maybe, oh, it was after comedy. So this is maybe 10 years, maybe 12 years ago. And I stood on the corner in San Rafael, which is a fairly conservative upscale community, with a big sign that said free hugs. And I thought nobody would come. After all, I'm a small old lady, and I just didn't think anybody would be interested. And to my shock, we were overwhelmed with people who wanted to hug me, and I hugged them. And it was beautiful. And then, much later, I was in Brighton, and William Ranieri, who is one of the best filmmakers we've got in England, believe it or not, but was in Brighton at the time and was working for the latest TV, which I don't have much good to say about. But William Ranieri, I have everything good to say about. He's a crack photographer and a filmmaker. And he decided that he was going to take me down to the pier, and I was going to have a sign that said, hug a granny. And I remember, I was hugged a great deal. But the thing I remember is, first of all, there was a school it was a class of children from a French school in Brighton that had just graduated. This was in summer. They had just graduated and they were down on the seafront celebrating. And they saw me and they swooped in, and every one of them gave me a hug. And then a little later, the police came and they to see that what I was doing, and every one of them gave me a hug. And so I want to talk a little bit about how important that hug was to me. Up until that time, when I had a contretemps with the police, it was always very unpleasant. It was always a bunch of young men who wanted to get back at their mothers and were most unreasonable and pretty horrible to me. I remember one young man that gave me a ticket for something I did not do. And when I went to the judge to explain that I did not do it, which was, I was in the wrong lane, but I was not, the judge said to me, "The policeman has nothing to do but sit and watch you. How could he be wrong?" And I got fined. So I don't have much respect for California police. I don't have much respect for the justice system in America at all. But I do have great respect for the way I was treated by the Brighton Police Department and the way I have always been treated in London by the police. There is never one that hasn't smiled at me and helped me. I always say that every policeman that I see would be very happy to help me across the street now that I am 87, even when I don't want to go across the street. So I'm going to tell you a story from days gone by to remind you that the policeman can be and sometimes is your friend. And in Brighton, they will hug you. And in Dublin, they will not only hug you, they will walk you to your destination and then come back later to make sure you got in okay. That's Dublin. That's the Irish police. So I was always taught when I was young that the policeman is my friend. I always was taught that the policeman is my friend. And when I was young, and the dinosaurs were roaming the earth, we lived in a place called 40 Burkhead Place, and it was a gated community right on the edge of one of the major intersections in Toledo, Ohio, because I've been in many places, and it was called Cherry Street. And when I would go to school, the Board of Education and the Safety Department in Toledo, Ohio, had a policeman to help us across the street. Now there are little traffic wardens, but these were real policemen with the badge, the whole thing. And the policeman that helped us across the street was Harold. And every day that I went to school, and I was 8, and about the same height I am right now, and I would go to school, and I would go to Cherry Street, and there was no light, but there was Harold, and I would put my little hand in Harold's big hand, and I would say, "Hello, Harold." And Harold would look down at me, and he would say, "Hello, Lenny Ruth. Are you ready for school?" And I would say, "Yes." And he'd say, "Would you like to cross the street?" And I would say, "Yes." And Harold would put me on his shoulders and carry me piggyback across the street. And that was when I learned that the policeman is my friend. However, from that time on, whenever I was in trouble and whenever I couldn't solve a problem, I would always call my friend. So we're going to flash ahead to when I was living in Pacifica, California. I had moved into my own home, and I was cooking dinner. Now, I have a tendency, as people know, to cook dinner at very odd, crazy times. And at this point in my life, I was cooking dinner at about 1 in the morning. And as I was cooking dinner, and I eat very healthily, so I was clutting up my salad, all the lights in my kitchen went. And I thought, oh my God, what'll I do? And I looked out the window to see if anybody was awake at 1 in the morning. And nobody was, because it was 1 in the morning, and also because their fuses had given up too. It was a major power break. And I thought to myself, what am I going to do? I'm hungry. I want to finish dinner. I'm liable to cut my hand off at the wrist if I keep chopping these vegetables and can't see a thing. And then I remembered that I had a friend, and the friend was in the police department. So I called the police department, and I said, I have no light in my kitchen, and I can't cook dinner. Can you please come over, send someone over to turn on the lights? And the policeman had answered. He was from California, and as I've told you, I have very little faith in California police. He was from California, and he said to me, do you mean to tell me that you are going to waste taxpayers' money by having me come over on my paid time to change a light bulb for you? And I said, well, I'm not sure it's a light bulb, but that's perfectly all right, darling. I said, I'll call the fire department. I know they'll help me. They're lovely. They helped me rescue my dog. They'll help me. There was a long pause at the other end of the line, and then I heard this policeman, whose name was Eric Rosham, and he said, if you can wait 30 minutes, I'll be right over to change that light bulb. And I said, well, thank you very much, young man. And I waited, and he came over. And, of course, the thing that was truly funny was he was approximately the same height I was. And it was not my light bulb. It was the fuses that had blown in the whole street. There was a power outage. And Eric could not help me. But thereafter, whenever Eric saw me, he would always say, how's the lighting situation, Lynn Ruth? And I would say, it was just fine, Eric. Thank you very much, because he was very definitely my friend. And when I went to Brighton and I had a sign that said, hug a granny, all the Brighton police were there to hug me because they are definitely my friend too. So I am going to leave this by reminding you that you must go out and don't just hug a granny, hug each other, because there is absolutely nothing as beautiful as the connection we have when we touch each other. And I don't mean in obscure places. I mean just a hug. So give your granny a hug, give your child a hug, give your partner a hug. And if they look at you with a strange little look, you say, well, Lynn Ruth said that that's the best medicine you can possibly give someone. And thank you for joining me for my Monday thought, which is actually a Sunday thought on a Monday. And I'll see you next week.